St. Stephen Baptist Church presents The Young and the Restless, Black Youth and the Struggle for Racial Justice, in collaboration with Actors Theater of Louisville. During this series, Pastor Cosby will walk us through historic moments in civil rights history. Birmingham and the Children's Campaign.
We were told in some of the mass meetings that a day would come when we could really do something about all of these inequities that we were experiencing. And we were calling it D-Day. And that was May 2nd, 1963.
Emmett Till, Truth or Consequences.
I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died.
Little Rock 9, too much schooling, too little education.
None of us of the 9 anticipated that the resistance would be as strong as it was. The local newspaper, the Arkansas Gazette at that time, indicated that the Brown decision was going to change the face of the South forever. I remember those words.
And the sit-ins among the shut out.
On this sit-in, we had about 130 kids. I think on this day, many of us didn't realize just how important our movement would grow to be.
The Black History Month Sermon Series, The Young and the Restless. Bring your children, invite all children to this powerful history lesson. It's the Legacy Choir, live in concert, Sunday, February 16th at the St. Stephen Baptist Church, 1018 South 15th Street. Come out and worship and witness our city's jewel, Miss Wilma Claiborne, honored for her contribution to gospel music. The Legacy Choir, live in concert, Sunday, February 16th, 6 p.m. at St. Stephen Baptist Church. Hey, St. Stephen Church family. Here are your church announcements. St. Stephen Baptist Church presents the 2020 Annual Marriage Retreat, Music of Marriage, Saturday, February 15th. Make sure you and your spouse register today at ssclive.org. The cost for the retreat will be $30 in advance and $35 at the door. There will be workshops, team building, food, games, and fun. So make sure you register today. Our youth ministry will be hosting a citywide exploration scavenger hunt on Saturday, February 8th from 12 to 4 p.m. This is going to be so much fun, so make sure your young people get involved. If you're interested in being a chaperone, contact Lanisha Porter today at lporter@ssclive.org. Hey, join the Kingdom Kids on an adventure. In observance of Black History Month and Women's History Month in March, this ministry will be hosting a historic wax museum of excellence. Children in kindergarten through 5th grade will research prominent African Americans or female historical figures, create an accurate costume and prop, memorize a 2-minute speech, and create a visual display for the exhibit. The museum will take place on February 23rd on all campuses. To get your young person involved, contact Courtney Cleveland Broom at ccleveland@ssclive.org. Hey, before we go, we've got some congratulations to hand out. Congratulations goes out to Miss Stephanie Barber, who has been appointed as the new Center Director for the Whitney M. Young Job Corps. Also, congratulations goes out to our own songbird, Miss Tanita Gaines, for being awarded with the Helen Humes Jazz Legend Award. You are now plugged in on all the happenings going on here at the Stephen. Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and download our app in the App Store. Now, let's continue with worship. Be blessed.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's Hump Day.
Woo-hoo!
All right, what day is it? Today is Wednesday, so that means it's Hump Day, and it's time for our Sunday School Hump Day lesson. If you remember, we started a new series for February, and the series is Justice for All. Notice, justice not for some, but for everyone. And our lesson that we will be looking at this week is, what does God want now? What does God want now, this day and age? We talked about, many times we talk about biblical stuff, and we stayed there not realizing that nothing has changed with God. What he wanted then, he wants now. So, and the amazing thing is that despite claiming to believe in Jesus' action, his power, and his words, it appears that many of us have become drunk on the empty promises of the American life. So in the pursuit of the disappearing American dream, whatever that is, and that is to make America great again, we have come to respect individuality over community, wealth of pocket over the wealth of spirit, pulling others down instead of lifting others up. That's the way we live today. And my sisters and brothers, if we don't do what God wants, we will continue to see and experience so much violence and unease and unrest in our communities and in our neighborhood. Why? Because we have forgotten to help the poor, the oppressed, and the widows. Micah 6:8 says this, he has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That's all that he is asking. And there again, let us go back to Amos 5:24. But let justice run down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream. James puts it this way, James 1:27. Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. But now, in our lesson today, which will come from Micah chapter 6, verse 1 through 8, we will see that God has brought a case against his people. Now, and as I said to you last week, Micah is a minor prophet. They are called minor because of the length of the book, not because of the message is not as important. It is just as important as the major prophets as Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, Ezekiel. It's just as important, but they don't say as much. Now, listen to what Micah says. Chapter 1, verse 1, he starts out, listen, people, all of you. Listen, earth, and everyone in it. The Master, God, takes the witness stand against you. Whoa! Now think about it. Think about it. Let me try and see if I can set the picture for you. You are in court, and God is now getting ready to take the witness stand against you. And it said, the Master, God, the Creator of everything, is now getting ready to be a witness against you. Look at what Micah 2 says. Start at verse 1. Doom to those who plot evil, who go to bed dreaming up crimes. As soon as this morning they off, full of energy, doing what they have planned. They covet fields and grab them, find homes and take them. They bully the neighbor and his family. See people only for what they can get out of them. God has had enough. Woo! God said enough is enough. Not only that, but jump on over to Micah chapter 3, verse 1. Listen, leaders of Jacob, leaders of Israel, and we could just easily put, listen, leaders of America. Don't you know anything of justice? Haters of good, lovers of evil. Isn't justice in your job description? I have to say, I don't believe it is in their job description anymore. But this is the word of God. But you skin my people alive. You rip the meat off of their bones. You break up the bones, chop the meat, and throw it in a pool for a cannibal stew. In other words, God is saying to the nation, you are eating my people alive. And so now God says, this is what we're going to do. God is calling us into court. He has a problem with mankind. And the problem in Michael's view, not to mention God's view, was the failure of God's people. Notice I did not say the world. The failure of God's people to care adequately for, I mean, they even exploited those whom Jesus will eventually call the least, because in Matthew chapter 25, verse 40, then the king will answer, I tell you the truth, anything you did for even the least of my people here, you also did for me. So in other words, Jesus identified with the least, the less, the lost, the lonely, the left out. He identifies with them, those you think who are lousy. He identifies with them. And because of the mistreatment, the abuse and misuse of the least, the less, and the lost, Micah declares that God has a case against his people. Now, I have a question. Does God have a case against America? At this point, my resounding, unapologetic answer is yes, he does. Let's look at this lesson. Point number 1, God has a court case against us. Look at, and then he has an indictment. Hear what Micah says. Hear what the Lord says. Arise, plead your case before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear, you mountains, the indictment of the Lord, and you enduring fountains of the earth. For the Lord has an indictment against his people, and he will come and contend with Israel. Now, get the setting. We're in court. Let's pretend this is court. We're right here in court. The judge and the prosecutor. The judge, the prosecutor. Say it again. The judge and the prosecutor is God. Whoop! You know you're in trouble. The court reporters, he calls on the hills to record everything that I'm going to say. And he calls on witnesses. The witnesses are the mountains and the foundation of the earth. Now, many times, and you know when we go over into the New Testament, when Jesus said, if you keep quiet, the rocks will cry out. Well, let me tell you something. And we always come back with the Christianese answer, I don't want the rocks crying out in my place. The rocks will be a witness against us. And the rocks have always endured and been there. I said once I was going to do a message on what do the rocks know. And the rocks know a whole lot. We may have to deal, that's another time and another place, but we need to deal with what do the rocks know? Well, so we see there's an indictment. There is an indictment, and he's called out. Now notice one thing. I want you to notice this. I'm not going to answer, but I want you to notice I answer it maybe, another week or two later. something is missing in this scene. You have the judge, you have the prosecutor, you have the court reporter, you have witnesses, and you have a defendant. But something is missing. Now, so let's go on. That's the indictment. Now let's go on to the inquiry. Because God's first question that he has for you is verse 3. Oh, my people, what have I done to you? How have I wearied you? Then he says, answer me. In other words, God says, how have I wearied you? In other words, what have I done to make you so tired of me? And that's the question that stands today. Many of us, we too tired. We can't even come out to worship on a Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or whenever it is. He said, what have I done? What have God done to make you tired of him? He's kept his promises. He woke you up this morning. You got food and clothing. What has he done to weary you? Should I wait 10 seconds and let you think about that, since I can't hear you. You can hear me, but I can't hear you. But I need you to think about what has he done that make you so tired and weary that you feel like, well, I don't think I want to go to Sunday school. Well, I don't think I want to go to choir rehearsal. I don't want to get in the ministry. I don't. How has he wearied you that you don't want to do anything? Then he says, how have I worried you? What are you worried about? Has he not come through for you? So what do you have to worry about? Every promise that God has given, he has been true to it. So what do you have to worry about? What has he done or hasn't done that has made you so anxious that you feel like you can't trust him? You can't take him at his word. And notice, and the thing is, I need to call this to your attention. Michael is saying the chief sinners in all of this establishment, the chief sinners in this court hearing are the leaders, the rulers, the priests, the judges. So let me put it down to today, because I almost did a Freudian slip. Maybe it wasn't a Freudian slip. Who are the chiefs sinners in this day? Capitol Hill. And see, our problem is we moved from Calvary's Hill to Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill can't do anything for us, or they won't. The Senate, the Congress, the presidents, the courts, the judges, the governors, the mayors, who are supposed to be protecting God's people, are the ones who in fact are wearying God. He said, I'm weary of you. I've had enough. You go to bed at night thinking of how can we get what we can get from them. Oh yeah, I know that you had the president's speech last night, but God is speaking today, and he said, all of you will get to come and stand before me. And there it is. I'm through with this. I can pick up my stuff and leave, because God has spoken, and none of us are going to get away with it. You see, and in fact, we need to ask ourselves, because Michael is talking about this, and last week we talked about justice. Based on the lesson that we had last week, what type of justice has Israel failed to demonstrate? What type of justice has America failed to demonstrate? You remember we had distributive justice, economic fairness. Give America an F. Procedure justice, due process. Give America an F. Restorative justice. That means restitution, reparation. Give America an F. And retribution justice. Punishment proportionate to the crime. And God knows America has got F minus with that one. And no, I'm not going to apologize. Because God says, let justice run down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. And God is tired of our stuff. Then, look what he does. And this is what we need to do. In verses 4 and 5, he says, let me find. For I brought you up from the land of Egypt. This is God even witnessing. He's telling the story. He said, I brought you up from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery. And I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. O my people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, devised, and what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him, and what happened from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord? He said, now, look what I just remember. And that's what we need to do today, is heed history. Remember your beginning. Remember where God brought you from. We left America, left England, said, because we didn't believe in the Church of England. We didn't believe in that. So we wanted a new beginning. And our beliefs were, we even wrote it on the dollar bill, in God we trust. Well, I think we need to turn around and look at that. It's in the money that we trust, because we don't trust him. But our beliefs, and God has blessed us. God has blessed these United States. And what have we done? Look at our behavior. We see exploitation of the poor, the rich getting richer, the wall to keep out immigrants, the working poor, veterans who has fought to make America free, veterans who have fought to make America what she is. Now they don't have health care, living out on the street, have no place to go. There is a problem. So what does God want now? He has shown you, old man, what is good. And what does the law require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And yet we have no health care. People living with no health care, living on the streets, got no job. We see bloodshed. The very people who are supposed to protect us. Police killing people, and particularly killing the black males. We see the increase of shooting in public places. We get to it used to be an amazing thing. Oh, they did. Now it has become, we are no longer sensitive to when they break in on the news and say, there's been another shopping at a shopping center, at a grocery store, or wherever the case may be. We should be up in arms. And yet, our government refused gun control. Why? Because the gun lobbyists got more money than us. There is something wrong. And again, what does God want now? He wants you to do justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly. And I declare, if we do justly, and that is to show justice, love mercy, and walk humbly, we wouldn't have the problems that we have. So, what does God want? We keep asking that question. Here's what he says. Let's go to verse 6. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? What's going to please him? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? Is this what he wants? Does he want me to give all that I got? My bank account, my house, my children, everything. What does God want? Well, he said, I tell you simply what he wants. He has told you, oh man, what is good. I'm saying it for the 15th time. And what does the Lord? And when you read that, you will notice the Lord is in all caps. This is Jehovah. This is the I am that I am. This is the covenant making God. This is the prayer answering God. What does he want? What does the Lord require of you? But to do justly. And to do justice means justice. Now, let me say justice is not the same as equality. And equality is being equal. Because equality presumes that all persons have equal standing on which to receive aid. And there is the only place that the ground is even, because the ground is not even, folks. Oh, God Almighty, I wish we could get this. The ground is not even. There is only one place where you can find the ground even for all of us. And you want to know where that place is? I'll tell you. I'm glad you asked me, because I'm going to tell you. And you can find even ground at the cross of Calvary. That ground is even. Nobody is better than anybody else. We all stand on the same ground. But when it comes to receiving aid, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to health care, when it comes to justice, I declare that lady's blindfold has slipped, or else she's got a see-through, or else she never had it on in the first place. Now, the Hebrew word for justice, I'm not going to try, I'm going to try to get through this so that I can finish the lesson, because I feel like in my spirit, I'm not going to get through the lesson, but I'm going to move it on. There is a Hebrew word. There are really two Hebrew words for justice. And the first one is mispah. Mispah. And that means to treat people equitably. It means acquitting or punishing every person on the merits of the case, regardless of race or social status. Woo! If we did just that part right there. Mispah then is giving people what they are due, whether punishment or protection. See, the justice of a society, according to the Bible, is evaluated by how it treats the widows, the orphans, the immigrants, and the poor. Now, today we could add some more onto that. Who? The homeless, the single parent, the elderly, the refugees, the migrant workers, as well as black citizens. That there is no, because the fact of the matter is, when we looked at the lesson last week, we discovered that you don't get black on black crime does not get the same punishment as black on white crime. Woo! God. If you all could get that. See, if I been black, killed a black, I may get a few years, or I may get home incarceration. But I get probation, I wouldn't get life. But if a black, killed a white person, I may not ever see the outside or see freedom again. And if that's what happens to me, then that's what should happen to a white person. You kill me, I kill you, I get life without parole. You kill me, you should get life without parole. That's what Mizpah is. So then the other justice is called tzedakah. Tzedakah. That's spelled T-Z-A-D-E-Q-A-H. Tzedakah. And that's just another word for, Hebrew word for justice. And that means, or that refers to day-to-day living in generosity and equality. It means we live fair and impartial. You see, Mizpah and Tzedakah roughly correspond to what some might call primary or rectifying justice. Now let me see if I can make this a little plain to you. Rectifying justice, or Mizpah, would mean prosecuting, listen to me now, the men who batter, exploit, and rob poor women. But it also means respectfully putting pressure on local police until they respond to calls and crimes as quickly in the poor part of town as they do in the wealthiest part of town. That's what Mizpah is. In other words, that's rectifying justice. You don't do one thing in one part of town and another thing in the other part of town. You see, in other words, it take you 10 minutes for the first responders to get to West End because there's a shooting, or it take you 15 minutes, but when it goes to the East End, it take you 3 minutes. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. So, Mizpah, it would mean not profiling. Woo! Do you hear me? Not profiling and stopping black males because of driving a certain car or certain people in the car or whatever the case may be. See, some of us don't realize there used to be a time the police stopped you. They just stopped you. And you knew to get your driver's license and all that kind of stuff. But now we've had to teach our young black male that when you get stopped, the first thing you do is put your hands out the window. Something's wrong. See, and many of us didn't know that. I really didn't know it until my great nephew, he said, I know how. You put your hands out the window to show them you got nothing. And that is something wrong, something wrong, something wrong. Something wrong. And then they still get shot. So, and what does the Lord want? There it is again. Now, what would I say Tzedakah meaning primary justice? Tzedakah would mean taking the time to personally meet the needs of the handicapped, the elderly, or the hungry in our neighborhood. Take the time. You see, if we practice one, we probably wouldn't have a need for the other. You see, if we practice Mizpah, then we wouldn't need Tzedakah because we would do right. And that's what justice is, said to do justly. And as we learned last week, the word justice in the word justice mean to do right. If we would just do right to one another, if we would do right, love mercy, walk humbly. You ain't all of that. So the first thing was justice. Now, love mercy. Let's get on down to mercy. Because, first of all, let me say this. Tzedakah is actually a moral obligation. It's a moral obligation. And you know, we don't want to talk about that because we want to feel like that if a person don't have it, then they must be lazy. See, that's what you think. That's what many people think about black people. Because we don't have, but yet nobody wants to take into accountability that we are starting. You've been playing the game 400 years. And now we just now coming to bat. So the score is 400-0. How do we catch up? And then because we have nothing, you say, oh, they lazy. They don't want to work. Well, stick around. It might be the fourth lesson. The fourth lesson, which is entitled, I think I told you about this last week, is entitled Go Up. Not Moses. I left Moses out because, see, many times we saying go down Moses, way down in Egypt land. Well, Roberta Flack, back in the 70s or 80s, she said, go up Moses, because you've been down too long. And on that lesson, we're going to tell you just a few, one or two things that we have not even realized what black people have done for this country. But let me move on. So that's the moral obligation. You have a moral obligation to help. So let's move on. There's justice. Do just, to love mercy. Let's talk about mercy as being kindness. And you see, many people, Christians as well, believe that justice is strictly mispah. In other words, the punishing of wrongdoers. Wrong answer. That's not all that justice is punish the wrong, is people who do wrong. No. In fact, they would say that helping the needy through generous giving. Now listen to me now, because what I'm about to say is really something. They would insist that generous giving to the needy should be called, it's not justice, they say it should be called mercy, compassion, charity, not justice. And you think because you give, you have, and you give to some of the welfare programs, Crusade for Children and all that kind of stuff, the juvenile juvenile diabetes. You think because you're giving to that you showing charity? If you have it and you don't give it, you say, well, see, because charity is my right. Well, charity means you have an option. You can give it if you want. But God doesn't see it as charity. See, because charity can't be required, because if it were required, if I was obligated to give to you, then it wouldn't be charity. Because charity says I could give or not give. Now hold on to it. When you have and don't give gifts to the poor, and you got it, and you don't give gifts to the poor because you see them as being lazy, or them folks that are always looking for a handout and yip. God doesn't call what you do give to them charity, but he calls them acts of righteousness. Woo! You didn't hear me. You didn't hear me. You didn't hear me. Because if you heard me, you would know where I'm going. So, if I have it and I don't give it, or if I give it, let me put it that way. I have it to give and I see somebody out there and I drop it in, who's those folks that got that red pot? Salvation Army. That's it, Salvation Army. I got it. I just come out of one of those stores. And I got all my Christmas packets. I know it's not Christmas, but this is going to go through you all year. Because, see, somehow or another, we don't think people need anything until Christmas time. And I got it. And there they out there dingling the bell and what have you. But I got my list. I haven't taken care of this one and that one. I got Sharon, I got Ann, I got Cynthia, I got all these people's names still on the list. So I go past the pot. Because right now I'll give charity from my leftover. Ain't that what we do? So when I do give, God says the gifts I give to poor are called acts of righteousness. He doesn't call it charity. Acts of righteousness. So, let me get this together. If I go past and I got it to give, then you say, oh, you had it to give and you didn't give, you just stingy. God doesn't see it that way. Hold on. God doesn't see it as being stingy. But how does God see it then? God says, I see it as an act of unrighteousness. And if it's unrighteous, it's a sin. Whoa, God Almighty. I just dropped something on you. I hope it bounced down into your spirit. Because you think, oh, they so stingy. It is an act of unrighteousness, and it's a violation of God's law, and a violation of God's law is sin. James said if you know to do right and you don't do it, it's a sin. You see somebody that needs some help, I hear you think about, I need help myself. Look, I thought, and I told this the other day, I thought I've always been poor. I came up poor. I came up on the poor side of town. I came up with a single mama who had to, we'll talk about that next week. Yeah, because that's in next week's lesson. Who had to work every day. Now, I told you last week that you're supposed to pay people their wages every day. Because my mama, she was, making it pretty, a domestic worker. It means she cleaned white people's houses. Yes, she did. And I'm not ashamed of it because it was honest living. And that's the way that she raised us. But I would be doing her injustice. I would be doing her injustice if I didn't take her sacrifice and build up on it and be more than what she did. That's what she wanted. Yeah, and I lost my thought. Yeah. And we think it's being stingy. But it's unrighteousness, a violation of God's law. And since we know to do right, we ought to do right. You think that you got, be careful. Look at Matthew 6:1. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. And see, that's sometimes what we do. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Why don't you give somebody a little piece of something? I was at Popeyes one day because I wanted some chicken. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, beside me, I saw, he wasn't there when I pulled up, this young man. And I saw him. And I looked around, I thought, well, where did he come from? And I looked and I turned back around. I looked and here he was at my car, knocked on the window. I let it down and he wanted me to buy him something to eat. I said, well, what do you want? He knew what he wanted. He knew better. I thought, now the dude, how you know that? He said he wanted the number 5 with the this and the that and the other. I thought, well, my gosh almighty, he knows the menu better than I do. And I said, you want something to drink? And because the Spirit had I had just thought we was doing sins we tolerate. We talked about kindness and all that stuff. So after having just taught it, it was in my brain. And so therefore, I was on my mind, and I thought, well, let me do what I just got through teaching. So I said, you want something to drink? And he said, yeah, he wanted Dr. Pepper. I said, well, I'm not sure they have Dr. Pepper. He said, oh, yeah, they have Dr. Pepper. I thought, is this dude playing me? Because he knew the menu and the drink better than I did. So I said to him, I said, look, why don't you go on up there to where the box is and tell me, because by the time I get around, I may have forgotten your order. So he walked around, and there he stood when I got there. And when I got there, I said, now what do you want? And he told me again, and I told them, and I said, now bag it up different so that I can, because there's 2 different orders. So now I told him, go on to the front and wait for me, and I'll drop his order off to him. And sure enough, when I got around there he was. I handed him his order. True story. And when I handed him his order, I looked and put mine beside me. When I looked up, he was gone. He was gone. I looked around, I thought, well, where did he go? And something said, be careful entertaining strangers, because you could be entertaining angels unaware. So God may have been putting me to the test. You just got through teaching about kindness. Now all of a sudden, let me put it in the way and see if you're going to do just what you've been teaching. And I was blessed. You know why? Because the next day, when I pulled into a place to get something to eat, I pulled up to the window, handed him my money, and the man said to me, he said, no, it's paid for. What do you mean it's paid for? The car in front of you paid for it. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. And I waved, and they just waved on back. You can't beat God-given. So show acts of righteousness. Well, my time is up then. The third thing he wants you to do is walk humbly. Justice requires us to humble ourselves to provide others with the same opportunities and benefit that we unequally reap from their misfortunes. Acts of righteousness. And let me put I don't have it down, but put in Deuteronomy 24:10. Go back and read that as well. So what does the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God? Next week, we're going to talk about modern day Pharisees. See you then. Be blessed.